You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello, everybody. Glad to have you here again. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, we're going to take a tour with a gentleman who is himself a multiple serial entrepreneur. He's largely in the health arena, but I think sounds like he's got some real estate ventures going on, and we'll talk about that in detail. But he's going to share with us some of his stories, his lessons learned, his journey along the way. His name is Tim Rexius. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, so let's just do a quick recap. You were telling me in the green room you've got 5 businesses that you own now. Give us the rundown. What's the mix in your portfolio there?
We started with Rexius Nutrition Stores. Started with one location, and at our height, we had 32 locations in 9 states. And over the last few years, I've been selling them off to my staff, turning them all into franchises. So I'm the franchisor, so I help coach all the independent shop owners in all the states we're in, and teach them how to be business owners. And it's a lot more fun managing them in my 20s and 30s, and into my 40s, not so much. But helping these younger guys and gals become owners themselves is kind of led into the how much I love for it. And then one of my employees, about 8 years ago now, wanted to partner up with me on my next crazy adventure. So we started Iron Heaven Gyms here in Omaha, originally just because I didn't like the other gyms and I wanted my own place, and we kept hitting capacity, and I had to quit giving all free memberships to all the fire department for violating fire codes. So I just kept expanding. Second location, third location, then we tripled the size of the original. Now we're buying the building on the second location to triple its size, and it's just as fast as we can build them, really. And then VHI Nutraceuticals. So my background's in biomechanical engineering, so health and nutrition is kind of my space. And so I started inventing different supplements to fix sleep problems or stress problems or digestion. Just not run of the mill everyday vitamins, but stuff that fixes problems. And turns out that people really liked it. And currently we sell across all 48 continental, the United States. And then we're also in Kuwait, and we're also in Australia. Wow. With that brand. And then the Timothy D. Rexius Business Consulting and Coaching, Keynote Speaking, which kind of led to me doing a lot of podcasting previously and coaching young business owners on all the pitfalls. And a lot of it's just how to start a business with no family money, because I was so broke. I mean, the definition of broke in the dictionary, this picture of my face, I was homeless when I was 19, sleeping in my car, quite literally. So self-made is, as my kids say, that I exaggerate that I walked uphill both ways in the snow to school every day. And I'm like, no, I really did live in an Oldsmobile. But, it was a 38-foot long Oldsmobile, so it was closer to a 2-bedroom apartment, honestly.
Yeah.
And then the one that's gone real big that's made us quite famous is the Omaha Protein Popcorn Company. I started about 7 years ago, 5 years of screwing it up, 2 years of not screwing it up, and we've launched into 14 countries in the last 24 months. We've added on about 30,000 retailers this year alone. So that's a lot of my travels. I think I've been in 7 states in the last 14 days for that company alone. So,
wow. Well, quite a waterfront there that you manage, and kudos for all of that. Where to begin? What was the genesis? I mean, obviously, perhaps the homelessness and made you think I got to do something different.
Well, my mom and dad, God love them. They, when you're out, you're out. Figure it out. There's no safety net. Go figure it out. And my mom, God love her, she's like, your mouth is either going to get you in a lot of trouble or it's going to get you paid. So whatever you do, you should go into sales. And she's not wrong. I love sales, and I started nutrition in '98, and I loved it. And get done with college. Got my shot at the NFL, didn't materialize, got hurt. And then I'm like, oh, I got to get a job. I mean, I had NFL dreams all over my face, the big paychecks, and got a job working in a company called Mid-American Research, and CEO really mentored me. And, he goes, your ability to sell is everything. And I moved up the ladder. I broke every record they had, and it was a great lesson in sales. I just wasn't passionate about what they were selling. And at 29, I was just young enough and dumb enough to go completely broke again after making how it is when you first make that money, you buy the house, you buy the cars. I made all the mistakes. And next thing you know, I'm working to pay the bills instead of working to have fun. And I decided the last time I'd really had fun was in the nutrition shop, just, helping people feel better about themselves. And here's the thing, you go from NFL ready and in the kind of shape I was in to 6 years of being on the road. And I was 330 pounds and not in a good way. I became the exact thing I had fought against the first half of my life. I had 6 ulcers burst at 29, being, higher up in a very, very successful company for a product I didn't really care about. Not that it was bad, it just wasn't my passion. And all of a sudden I got these massive health problems from pretty much over medicating myself for a job I didn't like. And any money I did make, I found that I would spend on things that made me happy because my job didn't fulfill me with happiness. So I figured, well, there's got to be a way to make money and enjoy what I do at the same time and be healthier. And I got back on the health kick. And in about 6 months, I kind of transformed my body, and how that changed me going into my 30s with kids already. I'm like, I just love this feeling of not only being able to do it, being able to help people do it. And seeing that impact. It isn't just about vanity. I mean, people go to the gym, they get healthy to overcome a divorce, to overcome financial reversal, a death in the family. It has a lot of power. And I found that was really addictive to me. And so it kind of led into that. And I figured out that I'm probably not a great employee, to be honest with you. I'm not. I want to challenge the system. I want to find a better way of doing it. I want to work smarter instead of harder. And I remember my old boss used to say, you really need to work for yourself, because if you weren't so good at selling, we'd probably fire you. Okay, sounds good. That's a good, and I just had a different attitude. It didn't matter what your age, your creed, where you come from. If you had a better idea, I wanted to hear it. And a lot of bigger, older companies don't operate that way. And I think that's a mistake. So that kind of was the big precipice for me, was if I don't do it now before I'm 30, or by the time I'm 30, I'm never going to do it, because kids only get more expensive. Now, fast forward 16, 17 years later, and I have 6 kids. Yeah, that's also why I'm gray. It has a different meaning behind it, but me going to work every day, I look forward to Mondays. If I ever get to the point where I don't look forward to Mondays, then I'm selling that outfit and I'm going on to something else. Life's too short to dread Monday morning, like so many people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm curious about a couple of things. So, entering the nutrition game in the supplement, I mean, there is a lot of science to that, to have a product that really works and doesn't hurt people,
Yeah.
and so I know there's a lot of the barriers to entry are great for something like that. So, tell us a little bit about, well, I mean, we don't have to do all the sausage making, but tell us a little bit about how you overcame some of those basic barriers that are there.
Honestly, it's amazing if you just reach out to people, especially in the scientific research field. They're happy to share their knowledge, and there's a lot of different testing that happens on overseas that doesn't happen here in the U.S. There are people testing probiotics. There are people who are testing different sleep aids, and in the U.S. it's more of a pay for play situation. How can it be monetized? In a lot of other countries, it's just not the same, and so I got pretty well known in that area. I have a background in chemistry, obviously, so for me, it got to be kind of fun, like what's legal, what's not, where's it made, where's it sourced from. Understanding the rules was the first case, is like, okay, what can you have imported, what can't you, and finding co-packers with labs that help me blend it the way I want to. And you have to be really good friends with those guys, because otherwise I'll drive them nuts, because I'm very particular with how I want something made. And aligning myself with people around in my circle that kind of believe in the same thing, that have a background, that say, hey, like, what's the number one problem we see? Stress and sleep. The biggest problems I've ever seen in anyone's health, regardless of age, is sleep and stress. All right, let's attack those. Like, what's working? What's out there? What's working? Let's try it. Okay, what didn't we like about this? What didn't I see? And I'm a guinea pig. I test everything on myself, which it's good and bad. But I'm a very stressed person. I don't sleep well. So for me, it's like, once I find a formula that I personally like, and it makes sense, and we've gone through the science, we've tested it, we've shelf-lifed it, we've seen what it does. We usually go with, things that have the efficacious dosing that's been studied at university. I'm not, I look at a lot of the new ingredients, but until I see data for a couple of years, I'm not even going to play around with them, because I don't want to see that there's a side effect 7 to 10 years. I mean, there are studies going back to the 70s on probiotics, done at the University of Ireland. And my wife calls me Rain Man, but I talk a lot. I just like to read and I remember, and I just find a lot of those things interesting. The ability to heal yourself and make an impact on your health. And being that, I've had family members with health problems. I'm like, okay, how do we fix that? Like, how do we prevent that problem? And, it was an old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. And, seeing prostate problems in my family when I was, in my 20s and they were in their 50s or 60s, I'm like, well, I don't want to deal with that in 20 years. How do I do a preventive maintenance for that? And it just came a lot of caring is what it came from, is that I want my family, myself, and my kids to be healthy. And, it is a large barrier to entry in the nutraceutical space. You can make a product fairly reasonably price wise, but then now it's a pay for play game when it comes to marketing. And it's just different. When I came up, it was, print and radio and TV. Now it's social media and influencers, which requires me to understand a whole lot of the things my kids do that I don't want to. But all my companies grow. And so it's, you can have a great product, but never hear about it because you don't have the right influencer. You don't have a Kardashian or something to, publicize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a totally different landscape.
Yeah.
I actually, my youngest son is entering into that space. He's got a passion for skincare products and anti-aging kind of things, and similar observations and experiences. He's in his mid-30s and he's formulated a line now, and and he's running into that the whole, how do you get out there? Because on one hand, the market is so saturated by product that people are advocating, and you're right, unless you have a big name influencer tied to it, it's hard to break through.
Well, even if you do, sometimes it doesn't even help. I mean, it was, if you looked over the last like 7 or 8 years and people said, well, you shouldn't get into the space, you shouldn't stay in retail because the web's going to take it over. I said, that's possible. But at the end of the day, people want results more than they want anything else. And Consumer Reports in 2020, 2021 that 50 out of 50 health products bought on Amazon were all 100% fake, and some of them even contained pharmaceutical drugs. Not one was real. All of it imported from China. You had that in New York in 2016, 2017. Every bottle bought on the shelf at GNC, Walgreens, Walmart, and Target had to get yanked because not a single bottle met label claims. And so it's allowed some of the smaller brands that once you have success and you get, that certain group of following you, you're fixing sleep or you're fixing skin or you're fixing whatever, asking them like, hey, share us on social media. And that's where the micro influencer has now become a relative marketing term. It's like, let's not try to get everybody with a Shaq or a Kardashian, right? Let's get Susie down the street and her 20 friends. And then maybe she's got a friend in another state and her 20. And that's kind of where I found my space work, because people, if you fix somebody's stress or sleep issue, they're going to tell everybody. And it's a slower ride. It's more of a marathon than a sprint. And I think too many people in business want that sprint. They want that money, and understandably so. But it really is, to be successful in this industry, it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. And that's something my son and I have been strategizing about recently. And he's now shifting his mindset about, he was trying to break out on the national scene, and I kept telling him, I said, why don't you just go local? You're in the Dallas market. I mean, that's a huge market.
Oh, it is.
And there's no disrespect, but it's safe to say there's a level of vanity in the Dallas area.
Oh, yeah.
That, if you can get those local influencers, the guy or gal, it doesn't. This is not a gender specific solution. It's skin. It's human skin that's being treated.
And there's nothing wrong with vanity either. I mean, look good, feel good is an expression for a reason. And I tell people that all the time when they're in the stores or the conferences I speak at. It's like, don't feel bad about that. Vanity, nothing wrong with vanity. Sometimes we use it as a bad word, sometimes use it as a good word. It's like, look good, feel good is an expression for a reason. When somebody comes in to one of our gyms, gets a good workout in, they feel like they look better. You see how their attitude just changes, towards everything else in life. And then there's ways for him to do that when it comes in. And I spoke at the American Aronia Berry Farmers Association national meeting. I was their keynote speaker, and, these farmers trying to get this great healthy berry that most people don't know about. And they're like, well, how do we do this? And you got farmers, and I'm trying to tell them about influencer marketing. And I looked, they were going to take me out the back and end me. I said, guys, you don't have to actually be an influencer yourself. There are services online. I've used join brands before where you can put a bid out and say, hey, I want influencers with this kind of passion for this product to, sample it. I'll send you a free sample, and you have to post it on all your social media forums. And there's a new one my son-in-law just told me about that even Taco Bell is using called Pear Pop. And what you do is you put your product up there, you make, a profile, and you make a contest. Like, hey, if you get me 100,000 views, you get $500. And if they don't produce, you don't pay them. And so now it's because it's got so saturated, influencers aren't just getting paid because they're pretty, which is great because for about 5 years there, that was pretty much the case. And it kind of was a risk for a business owner. I'm like, well, I mean, do your followers follow you because you're pretty, or do they follow you because they want to listen to you? You know, and there was always that risk in being so disenfranchised from social media because I don't like it personally. But for business, I have to. So you basically put up a bid and say, hey, for every 1,000 views you get or click links on your when you share my product, you get $50. And I mean, you got companies as large as Taco Bell doing it right now. It's an easy way for a small entrepreneur with a tiny budget to go ahead and start those influencers. You can even pick your area and say, I just want people in the Dallas area. And you can do that. And we're going to be doing that with a few of our brands as well, just because, I want people to really hear somebody's honest opinion of what they used. I don't want to pay somebody just to talk about it. I want them to actually use it and give their honest opinion because, at the end of the day, honesty in business is still the best policy, in my opinion.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I'm curious about your gym locations. I have a love-hate relationship with the gym, and I have my whole life. I'm one of those guys. When I got out of the military, and that was arguably the best shape I've ever been in, when I was in the military, I was just burned out. It was like, I don't ever want to have to train like that again. And that's kind of the way it's gone. But you mentioned you kind of created a gym because you didn't like the other ones around you. What's different? What amenities, what features
Well,
are you going after?
well, it kind of changed. I went from sports, right? And then I got hurt. And then I got really just morbidly out of shape. And I had the ulcers, and then I got back into it. And I was still training like a football player, even into my mid 30s. And then I met my now wife, who is significantly better looking than me, which is great. And she was in really good shape. And she's like, you should like, maybe, do a bodybuilding show. And I'm like, you're kidding me. I mean, I look like an offensive lineman usually. And so I started getting into the bodybuilding scene a little bit, which is the ultimate. I mean, of all the sports I've done, bodybuilding is by far the hardest, the most dedicated discipline. There's no off days, there's no cheat meals really. It's nonstop. So for 4 years, I competed in bodybuilding, and so we have a lot of young children. And so, bodybuilding, you have to practice your posing. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger used to just say, you have to get in the mirror and see it. Well, I didn't want to do that in front of anybody because I thought it was embarrassing. Plus, I had little kids. So I would go to the local big gym, call it Globo Gym, or whatever you want to call it, at 9:30 at night after my kids went to bed, because I'm still a dad and I'm still a husband and I'm still a business owner. And I would go in their upstairs classroom, which had a tiny little window so nobody could see me, and I would practice doing my posing. And I came down one day, it's about 2 weeks out of my last show I ever did, which was in 2017 in February, and I was 38 years old. Um, and the lady goes, "You're intimidating other guests." I go, "Well, first of all, I talk more than I work out. I'm a salesman. I do. I'm my own worst enemy. I have to go to the gym when no one else is there, or I will talk the whole time about whatever. I'm a talker. I mean, it's terrible because I will spend an hour there and do 2 sets." And I said, everybody knows me here. And it turns out that, I sell supplements and the gym wants to sell supplements. So they basically found an excuse to kick me out. So 2 weeks later, I win the LA Open against all the 20-year-olds. And I was 38. And I was like, okay, going out on top, I'm done. And my wife got pregnant with our now youngest at the time, our surprise baby. And she said there was going to be no abs in the house if she was going to get as big as a house. So I went ahead and pregnancy ate right along with her. But needless to say, I needed a place to work out. And I just sat there with my now business partner and our wives. We're all into this together. And I go, let's list the top 10 things we hate about other gyms. Okay, we hate initiation fees. We hate contracts. I don't want to be a bill collector. I want 24-hour access. For guys who like the gym, I hate rubber weights. I want the real iron. That's the whole point. I grew up with it. I want, just this, that, and the other thing. It's like I love my kids, but I go to the gym to get away from my kids. So I don't want a daycare. I don't want a pool. It looks like a nightmare. It always smells bad. We just kind of listed all the things just for us. We figured it's a really niche area, but we'll start small. And I'm like, okay, from a business ownership perspective, it's a good tax write-off because, you're, a lot of accumulated depreciation. You can do, different accelerated depreciation models and stuff. And so we started the first gym. Within 8 months, I'm at capacity. I can't fit another person in the building. I'm like, oh man, I just now started making money. Now I got to go into debt again. So we got a second gym. My neighbor owned a building. That one had more members than the first one in 90 days. Neighbor left the first one. We took over that bay and we just kept increasing it, increasing the size because everybody kind of just liked the vibe. And now originally it was for bodybuilders, and we started having a lot of, silver sneakers, 70 plus come in, and my parents included. And I asked them, like, what makes this place attractive to you? They go, one, everybody's respectful because it's locally owned. They all know that, they're all scared of my wife. My wife will come in and you don't put your stuff away. She's going to tell you about it. And if you do something, she's going to call you on it. Like it's a supportive environment. People are there to get something done. And if we have kids under the age of 16 in there, they have to be with the parent. You don't have a bunch of 12-year-olds running around. We don't allow it. Yeah. Does that cost me money, income? Yeah. But it keeps the culture of what we created together. And so here I am in the morning doing cardio at 5 a.m. and there's a district court guy and old property manager. They're both in their 80s and they make fun of me. They're, if I was your age, I'd be going twice as fast. Yeah. Shut it, But and then you'll see some of the biggest, most successful bodybuilders anywhere around here, huge guys that and they understand what we're doing here. My wife used to coach physique transformations, like for women specifically. We had a gal come in, and I won't say her name, but she was about 450 pounds. And she was so scared to walk into a gym, just kept this perpetual thing. But here's my wife, a mom of 6 in her 40s, who just kind of owns it. And she's like, well, so this gal was driving an hour and a half each direction 3 times a week to train with my wife at our gym from out of state. And the first day, the girl told my wife, she goes, I'm so deathly afraid. And here, sure as heck can be, 2 of the biggest guys in Omaha training together 10 feet away. And this girl about walked out. My wife goes, no, I'm the owner. You come with me. My wife walks her over. I want to introduce you guys to, call her Casey. And they're like, oh, so nice to meet you. If you need anything, just let us know. And we just completely broke the mold of what people think a gym is. Now, do some gyms have those guys? Yeah, we kick them out. You will be nice and respectful to every person in this building, or you're not worth the money. We'll kick you out. And I've only had to kick out 5 people in probably 8 years for that. But I think now it's got this whole culture of you come here to get stuff done. You're not here to goof around. You're not here to be on your cell phone. You're not here to, this isn't an extension of Tinder to get a date. You're here to do something. And because of that style, and then people are like, well, I want to cancel my membership. Just drop us an email. That's it. I go, yeah. Like, we're not going to make you come in and sign with blood on the dotted line like some of these gyms. I don't want to be a bill collector. I'm not sending you to collections. It's just that kind of vibe, local ownership, people who care. We take care of the facility. We listen to our members. It just blossomed. And, we really turned our gym into something different during COVID. And when we had to adapt is that, we were worried about distancing and we stayed open, but it was more like the key fobs were made in China. So people can't get in the building. And the military base shut down here off it. And so they needed a place to train. So we let all the military come in for free. And there were people like literally going through rehab, like drug rehab, and that gym is their outlet. And if they don't get to the gym, they might relapse. So we're like, we're not shutting down. And so we ended up getting a barcode system, and we learned how to operate 24/7, 365 digitally. So we have our own app. You can buy a membership 24/7, 365 because we have completely transparent pricing. Nobody else does that. They want you to come in, give you the big spiel, and talk into this big expensive contract. We're like, we're going to do exactly the opposite. We're going to let you sign up online, cancel online. Here's our membership fees. You can get an app. You can get a barcode. You can buy a membership pass while we're sleeping. And because we've got vending machines, so if you want to buy anything, you can. It's 24/7, 365. People have that access and they like it. And it put us in a whole new niche away from everybody else who, we're not a spa. We got some pretty nice stuff. Don't get me wrong, but if you want to get your nails done, go to the nail spa. We're just not those people. You want a daycare? I get it. I have 6 kids. Go to the YMCA. There are a lot of really good gyms out there that have those. Go there. We're not trying to be everybody's everything. We're trying to be somebody's something.
Mm-hmm. I love that phrase. That's a great and a perfect definition of creating a niche for yourself that, really resonates with the people that need it. And I'm sad you're not down here where I am. That sounds like a deal. I don't think I'm going to drive to Omaha to get there, but congratulations on having that vision and getting that out that way. What would you tell the guy that is maybe in their, I don't know, it could be any stage of life. I started to say in their early 20s and just, sort of jonesing on an idea, but it could actually happen any stage of life. You realize what you're doing is not getting it. It's not fulfilling. It's not allowing you to live your passion and look forward to Monday, as you said. What would you tell a guy like that?
I mean, first things first is, you got to do a nice internal audit, is okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at? I've had guys who see what I do, like in like say the retail stores. Oh, I'd love to do that. Okay, is that in your skill set? First, we got to be a real nice, honest audit of yourself. What's your skill set? Some people, you might like the industry and you might like the health nutrition, but you're bad at sales. I mean, well, then, okay, well, it's cool. Like, then you're not going to be the guy at the helm in front of people. All right, so that lets us know financially where we need to plan out something. Like, where's your skill set at? Oh, I can sell all day long, but man alive, I can't balance a checkbook, much less a QuickBooks for a business. Okay, well, we better budget for a CPA or a bookkeeper then, so there isn't too much month left at the end of the check. Personally, I tell everybody else, get yourself as close to debt free as you can. At the end of the day, I've seen more business owners fail, not because the business wasn't producing enough profit. It wasn't producing enough profit for their particular lifestyle at the moment. And you got to be willing to live a little bit well beneath your means for quite a while to build that up, to get that secondary income source or allow that cushion to weather the storms. It's like health and nutrition in the United States, right? So July is the worst month of the year for health and nutrition. In about 25 years, I figured out why. It's because everyone works so hard to get in shape for the 4th of July. And after that, it gets hot and they're like, well, I already did my 4th of July pick. I'm going to drink and eat and not do anything for the next 3 weeks. And then in about mid-August, that back to school rush is like the second biggest month of the year for nutrition because everyone gained 30 pounds between that 6 weeks off after the 4th of July. Now they want to hurry and get it off quick. And I've just seen this go back and forth so many times. But you're going to have those ups and downs to weather that storm. And if you don't come from money and you don't have a big line of credit, you need to make sure that financially, personally, that you are in a position that you can weather that storm. Because there's been quite a few times where my staff got checks, but I didn't, depending on what was going on, what investment opportunity came my way. And we've done that with all the businesses. Funny thing is when we started our third gym location, this is in the end of 2021, we had gotten a call from the Atlanta Falcons pro football team. And what had happened was they had bought twice as much equipment during COVID to show the media that they were social distancing all their athletes. So once the media didn't care anymore, they wanted it gone. And they didn't want to sell it to anybody locally. They'd be hacking off Atlanta Falcons football equipment. So we got a call like, hey, we want you to bid on all of it. And we're talking, it was a lot of equipment. But we had the cash available, and I gave them a bid, and we won. And I ended up getting a couple $100,000 of equipment for 10 cents on the dollar. But, the bank's not going to loan that. It's out of state, and you got to have you got to have cash available and keep your debt, your debt's low, your automatics low. So that way you're flexible. And, it was funny because I'm a blended family. We got remarried. And when we got married, she's like, we need to buy a house because I was still apartment living. I was the CEO of 2 companies. And I was still living in an apartment because I didn't want the debt against me. And, she realized that 6 kids combined, they need to have their own rooms. Oh, good Lord. But, for me, and I was driving an old beat up truck, and she at one point said, she goes, you have 40 employees, some of them as young as 16, and you have the worst vehicle in the company. And I did. I had the oldest. I had a 2003, oh God, what was it? Durango. And it was so rusted out, I had Arnold Schwarzenegger wrapped around the whole car so you could cover up all the rust spots so I didn't look like I was a broke business owner. And my wife helped me kind of get out of that. She goes, we're not poor. You don't have to dress like that. I'm like, so she started, if I'm wearing something new, it's because my wife bought it. But I was so ingrained into that I always wanted to have my cash available and my debts as low as humanly possible. And for newer owners or people looking to do that, that's the biggest thing. Because if you're married to that nice, expensive BMW payment and you're living in a house that's already stretching your paycheck, it's hard to be an entrepreneur because there'll be times where you just don't get paid and it's going to take a while to build it up. So get your personal expenses to as low as is humanly possible. It'd be the biggest piece of advice.
Great advice, because as anyone who's launched a company knows, cash is king. It's that availability of cash in the moment. And Just because you think you have money in the bank doesn't mean you've got cash, because that money may be already obligated to the next payroll or the next rent check or whatever, and it doesn't mean it's ready cash. So getting that concept of managing cash flow on top of it, but I love your advice there. Doing that debt cleanup personally so that you can weather those ups and downs, because they will happen. And the other thing that your comment there reminds me of is, if you want to get on the entrepreneurial journey, you're not going to have these nice smooth growth lines like you see in business school. There's going to be giant stair step chunks of obligation you've got to have to take in and bank it or hold it, or because like your example of, you maxed out your gym facility, you needed a second one if you're going to keep growing. Well, that's not a smooth line
No.
event. It's a giant slug of cash going out the door overnight when you sign that contract for that facility, and
I mean,
now
even
you
I
got a
had
new incremental obligation.
I had a successful business. It still took me 11 banks to get a loan for the first gym.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell them a year later, hey, I know I just now started making profit, but I need another loan. And then they kind of looked at me like I was nuts. I say, well, you're already in this deep with me. So let's just see how down the ladder we can go. And that's where I always tell entrepreneurs, the other thing is, like, get local. Stay with the local bank. Don't go to the
Mm-hmm.
big boys. You'll never get told yes. Local guy sees it. He has roots in the community too. Talk to a locally owned bank. Do not go big. I've never gotten a loan from a big bank yet. And at this point, I don't even try. I got my local guys that are just crazy enough to let me talk them into it. And at the end of the day, that's where part of being the salesman, and they have to believe in the mission. And you call up to a big bank, they're calling out to LA or Minneapolis or New York, and they're like, Omaha, Nebraska, they got running water yet? I mean, that's the kind of question. They're like, that's too cheap. There must be some sort of scam. I'm like, no, it's just cheaper here.
Yeah.
And getting with those local guys allows me to talk them into what the vision is, and it's made it a lot. It gets good relationships too. And then that next time, and I paid off a couple $1 million in loans for gyms, and now next time I go to that bank with a new crazy idea, I'm 10 times more likely to get the yes. So
Right. Right. Absolutely. And that was one of the key principles I got from my mom, who was independent entrepreneur. She one of her top 10 pieces of advice was, get to know a good local banker that you can work with, that will pay attention and be willing to know you. And if you get the first commitment from them, you darn well better, get it paid back, if not early, if you can. And that's what she did. She paid back every dime she ever took from a bank. She paid it early, not, she didn't wait, run out the contract on it. But and that that built credibility and consistency, and they were inevitably always willing to step up to the next bigger level she was going to.
absolutely. I mean, it's all relationship. At the end of the day, I tell the high school kids when I speak at the universities or the high schools that it's all about relationships. It always is. I mean, it's a relationship business. Your ability to shake a hand, make an impact, be a person of your word, and build that relationship opens doors everywhere. And I always give the thing of the high school kids is my favorite one. Because they always get asked, like, how do I get financing? What was the biggest hurdle? And I said, every person you meet, your banker, whoever it might be, impacts your life, whether you know it or not. And I said, and so it's always in the high schools. It's the best, and you'll love this. I said, think of the person in this school you have beef with, the person you like the least, and they all smile because they got a person instantly in their mind. I said, okay, fast forward 10 years from now, you're ready to start that first business, your dream. You've got everything set. You're ready to go. You go to the bank, and the underwriter for that loan is the person that you just named in your head. And they all go, oh. I'm like, yeah. Now,
Boom, lights
thinking
go
about
off.
it now, how are you going to treat every person you meet from here on out in this school? Because they are a future potential customer, investor, or banker that you might have to deal with. And I go, and the teachers have told me over the last 4 years I've been giving that speech that it's amazing that the kids that are in those classes or those symposiums, how they change. And because it is absolutely true. I mean, we've had it, and it turns out, we got our first loan for the first business. Turns out it was somebody from college that just thought well of me and finally decided, I like this guy. We'll say yes. And it all came down to, I found this out years later, that it was somebody I went to college with that I was nice to, that apparently had been picked on, but I hadn't picked on him. I was just always a nice guy, and that's how I got approved for my loan, even though the business plan, and now looking back on it 20 years ago, was not very well written. I thought it was pretty good at the time. I didn't have Chat GPT back then. I had to actually write that stuff by hand. And it's all because of a relationship.
Well, I'll echo that story and share one of my own. It's not just high school. It happened to me in college. There was a guy in my dorm that my freshman year, from day one, we just didn't connect, and we were kind of forced into connection because of the proximity and everything that was going on. And midway through our first semester, he and I actually got in a fist fight out in the parking lot, because we just hated each other. We just fundamentally, didn't jive. But we made it through the 4 years, graduated together, went on, and there was a lot of opportunity to reconnect over the years. And I was always cordial and sociable, but not really seeking a friendship with this guy. It was more of a, you could almost call it tolerating kind of a mindset. And fast forward almost 50 years. That's how I'm telling them my age. But 3 or 4 years ago, he came up to me at an event where we were all connecting again. It was kind of somewhat of a reunion kind of scenario. He came up to me and he said, "Doug, I owe you an apology." He said, "I've been doing a bunch of self-healing in my life." He said, "When I think back now of my college years," he said, "I was a messed up guy. I was drunk most of that time. And I had anger management issues. I had a whole lot of things that I was dealing with." And he said, "I think I probably made your life miserable. And if you'll accept it, I want to apologize." And I said, it hit me. And I said, "Well, you know what?" I said, "Truth is, we were 18. What did we know? I mean, we were both young and stupid." And I said, "I'm not going to tell you I harbored anything about that. But it also never motivated me to do much different than what we've done over these years as we've gotten together." I said, "So, turnabout fair play, I may owe you an apology. I never took you in and wanted to pay attention to what might be going on, but I'm glad we're doing this now. And guess what? We're pretty darn good friends right now." And
Well, and then I've seen it in the stores, like when I first started Rexius, and in the nutrition stores, and I quit a good paying job, and everyone said I was nuts. And I mean, everyone said I was nuts. Giving up that good job, that good pay to go start this nutrition store. And then, you got the giants of the industry were all based around here. And here I am, this tiny store, no budget, and they've all gone bankrupt since I've exploded. And it's funny looking back 16 years since that opening, and I got people coming in that, "Oh, yeah, I remember when he first started. I was the first customer here." I have about 500 people that claim to be my first customer and how much they supported me. 495 of those are the ones that said they'll never make it. Oh, he's dumb or whatever. And my kids, whenever they see me out, we do, "That was one of your first customers." "You were, buddy." And we take a picture together. We shake hands. And my kids will go, "Was he one of your first customers?" I go, "No, that guy said I was going to fail. He didn't come in till like year 4. I remember because I was in the store every day for 4 years." And they go, "Why didn't you call him out on it?" I go, "What's the point?" The point is that they're now excited for me. They want to be part of that journey. They want to pretend like they were there, and that's fine. And my ego doesn't. It's not bruising my ego for them to claim. It's actually boosting, the brand itself by me not holding a grudge or whatever. My success comes in how my kids, my wife, and my creator looks at me, and obviously, and all, of course, like my bank account. So I don't care. They want to claim to be a first customer, sure. I know it's not true, but hey, if that means you're going to tell everybody else you're a first customer and get them to come in the shop, that sounds good to me, and that's just dropping the ego and the attitude at the door and just saying, "You bet you were. I remember that, buddy." I'm like, "No, I don't." But, it's not going to do me any good to tell them they're wrong either.
Argue with them. Yeah. Well, Tim, this has been great, man. Well, I know we're about up on time, and we've got all your links we're going to have in the show notes, but is there a preferred way you like people to reach out to you if they're interested in connecting and knowing more?
Honestly, if you go to timrexius.com, that's TIMREXIUS.com, that links to all the social medias, all the companies, all the brands. we have so many different links in communication, and my assistant made it very clear to send them to the website, and she'll take it from there because she gets. My assistant is she's not here right now. Good, because she'll think I'm just brown nosing, but yeah, she's amazing and helps kind of keep track of the craziness. And we started booking out podcasts. I think I'm booked for about 60 of them in the next 6 months, so it's kind of nuts. But I love doing it, and I appreciate you having me on the show so much, and really looking forward to seeing this thing out in the air and sharing it on social media.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely get that done. But one last time, Tim, thanks so much, man, and
Absolutely.
great story, and thanks for sharing.
You bet. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Well, folks, we are going to wrap this up. I want to remind you, if you need to reach out to me and want to talk about your business or your own leadership development needs, just hop over to my website at dougthorpe.com. You can get information there. We can connect for a free, no obligation discovery call, and we'll figure out what you want to do next. But I think we're wrapping this up, so I'm going to say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.